Commander Velthak stood on the bridge of his massive warship, staring at the empty space ahead. His 4 yellow eyes blinked slowly as he tried to understand what his sensors were telling him. For 300 years, he had led the Zephyrian fleet across the galaxy. No barrier had ever stopped them. No species had ever said no to their power. But today was different. "Sir, the forward scouts are reporting again," said his second officer, her voice shaking slightly. "They still cannot pass through Sector 7. Velthak's long fingers drummed against the metal railing. The Zephyrians were masters of space travel. Their ships could jump between dimensions, fold space like paper, and appear anywhere in the universe within moments. They had conquered 17 different galaxies using this power. Every species they met either joined them or died. "Show me the scanner results again," he ordered. The main screen lit up with a map of local space. Dozens of areas were marked, in red. Each red zone looked completely normal on all their instruments. No energy readings, no unusual matter, no signs of any technology at all. Just empty space with stars and cosmic dust. But their ships could not enter these zones. When they tried, the vessels simply stopped moving forward, as if hitting an invisible wall. "How many ships have we lost trying to break through?" Velthak asked. 47 scout ships and 3 full squadrons, sir. They vanish the moment they touch these boundaries. No explosion, no wreckage, no final messages. They just disappear." Velthak's mandibles clicked together, a sign of deep thought among his people. In all his years of conquest, nothing like this had ever happened. Usually, primitive species tried to fight them with weapons or hide behind energy shields, but this was something else entirely. "What do the science team say?" His science officer stepped forward, holding a data pad with nervous hands. "Commander, we have studied these zones for weeks. They appear to be scattered throughout this entire region of space. Some are small, maybe a few hundred kilometers across. Others are massive, stretching for light years. And, sir, there is no technology creating these barriers, no energy source, no machinery, nothing our scanners can detect. But something is definitely there. Something that stops our ships but allows light and radiation to pass through normally." Velthak walked to the large viewing window. Outside, stars dotted the black void as they always did. Everything looked peaceful and normal. But somewhere, out there, invisible walls were blocking the most powerful fleet in known space. "Have we detected any other ships in this area?" "Only one, sir. A small research vessel from a species we have not encountered before. It was drifting near one of the barrier zones. We captured it 3 days ago." This was interesting news. Velthak had been so focused on the barriers that he had not paid attention to other activities in the sector. "What species?" "They call themselves humans, sir. The ship is primitive by our standards, but they seem to know something about these zones." Velthak turned away from the window. Perhaps these humans held the key to understanding what was stopping his fleet. "Bring their leader to me. I want answers." "Yes, sir. But Commander, there is something strange about these humans." "Strange how?" The science officer looked uncomfortable. "When we told them they were our prisoners, they did not seem afraid. Most species panic when they meet us. These humans just asked if we had found the silent zones yet." "Silent zones?" "That is what they call the barrier areas, sir. They seem to know exactly what they are and where they are located." Velthak felt a cold feeling in his stomach. In 3 centuries of conquest, fear had always been his greatest weapon. Species that did not fear the Zephyrians were usually very dangerous or very stupid. He hoped these humans were stupid. "Prepare the interrogation chamber. I want to speak with their leader immediately." As his crew rushed to follow orders, Velthak remained at the window, staring at the seemingly empty space ahead. Somewhere in that darkness, invisible barriers were keeping his mighty fleet trapped like insects in a cage, and somewhere else, a small group of humans held the answers he needed. He had conquered species with technology far beyond these humans. He had defeated civilizations that had existed for millions of years. But something about this situation felt different. The barriers were not attacking his ships or trying to communicate. They were simply there, silent and unmovable, like ancient monuments in space. For the first time in many years, Commander Velthak felt uncertain. The Zephyrians had always won through superior mobility and surprise attacks. But what happened when you could not move where you needed to go? What happened when empty space itself refused to let you pass? He would get his answers from these humans. One way or another, he would understand what was stopping his fleet. Because if he could not break through these silent zones, his conquest of this galaxy would end before it truly began. The bridge crew worked quietly around him, preparing for the interrogation. Soon he would face these mysterious humans and learn the truth about the barriers that had trapped the masters of space. The metal doors of the interrogation chamber slid open with a soft hiss. Commander Velthak watched as 5 humans were escorted into the room by his guards. He had seen many alien species during his long career, but these creatures looked surprisingly similar to several others he had conquered. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head, with 2 eyes. Nothing special about their appearance. The human in front was a woman with short black hair and calm dark eyes. She wore a simple blue uniform with some kind of identification badge. Behind her walked 4 others, 3 men and 1 woman, all dressed in similar clothing. What struck Velthak immediately was their behavior. Most prisoners shook with fear or tried to look brave by shouting threats. These humans simply looked around the room with quiet interest. "I am Commander Velthak of the Zephyrian Dominion," he announced, his voice echoing in the chamber. "You are now prisoners of the most powerful force in this galaxy." The lead human bowed her head slightly, a gesture that seemed respectful rather than fearful. "I am Dr. Kim Hanna of the research vessel Morningstar. These are my crew members." Velthak studied her face carefully. Her voice was steady, and her eyes met his directly. No trembling, no begging, no signs of panic at all. This was already unusual. "Dr. Kim Hanna," he repeated slowly. "Your ship was found near one of the barrier zones. You will explain what these silent zones are and how to pass through them." Dr. Kim exchanged a quick glance with one of her crew members, a tall man with serious eyes. "The silent zones are memorial sites, Commander. Places where we honor those who chose silence." Velthak's translator device buzzed as it worked to make sense of her words. "Memorial sites? You mean burial grounds?" "Not exactly," replied the tall man, stepping forward slightly. "I am Park Min-ho, Chief Engineer. The zones mark places where our people earned their rest through sacrifice." The Zephyrian commander felt his patience beginning to thin. These humans spoke in riddles instead of giving clear answers. "Explain this sacrifice. Explain how you created barriers that stop our ships." Dr. Kim folded her hands in front of her. "We do not disturb the places where our people found peace, Commander. The honored quiet must remain undisturbed." "Anorad." "Quiet?" Velthak's mandibles clicked with frustration. "You speak in meaningless phrases. I want technical specifications. I want to know what technology creates these barriers." The 3rd crew member, a younger woman, spoke up. "There is no technology, sir. Only memory and respect." Velthak slammed his fist on the metal table between them. The loud bang echoed through the chamber, but none of the humans flinched. This reaction only made him more angry. "Do not play games with me. I have destroyed entire worlds. I have conquered civilizations that existed before your species learned to walk upright." Dr. Kim's expression remained calm. "We understand your power, Commander, but the silent zones are not about power. They are about remembrance." "Remembrance of what?" "Of loss," she said simply. "Of places where our people made the ultimate sacrifice. Of moments when we failed and learned from our failures." Park Min-ho added, "Each zone marks a location where humans died protecting others, or where we lost colonies, or where great battles were fought. We mark these places so they will never be forgotten." Velthak walked around the table, his tall form casting shadows over the seated humans. "And you expect me to believe that your memories somehow create physical barriers in space? That your thoughts can stop my warships?" "Not thoughts, Commander," Dr. Kim corrected. "Collective will. When all humans agree that a place should remain sacred, that agreement has power." The science officer who had been standing quietly in the corner stepped forward. "Sir, if I may." We have been monitoring their brain patterns during this conversation. All 5 humans show identical neural resonance frequencies. Their minds seem to be synchronized somehow. Velthak stopped walking. Synchronized? Yes, sir. As if they are all thinking the same thoughts at the same time. We have never seen anything like it in other species. Dr. Kim smiled slightly. We are not a hive mind, if that is what you are thinking. But when humans face great tragedy or loss, we remember together, we grieve together, and we promise together that such losses will not happen again. These promises create your barriers? The barriers exist because billions of humans believe they should exist, the younger woman explained. When we all agree that a place is sacred, reality itself seems to honor that agreement. Velthak felt a chill run through his body. He had conquered many species with unusual abilities. Some could manipulate energy, others could read minds, a few could even bend time in small ways. But he had never encountered a species that could alter the basic laws of physics through shared belief. How many of these zones exist? In this sector? Perhaps 200, Dr. Kim replied. Throughout human space? Thousands. The number hit Velthak like a physical blow. His fleet was not just facing a few isolated barriers. They were surrounded by an entire network of impassable zones, created by a species that could make their collective will into reality. For the first time in 3 centuries, Commander Velthak began to understand that he might have found a species he could not conquer. Days passed in the sterile white walls of the Zephyrian research facility. Commander Velthak paced back and forth in his private office, reading report after report from his science teams. Each document made him more confused and more worried. The humans had been placed in comfortable quarters, not prison cells. Velthak had learned long ago that cooperative prisoners gave better information than tortured ones. Dr. Kim Hana and her crew answered questions politely but revealed little useful technical data. They spoke of grief and memory and collective promises but gave no blueprints or energy readings that his engineers could understand. Chief Scientist Mordank entered the office carrying a thick stack of data tablets. His usually confident expression looked troubled. Commander, we have completed our detailed analysis of the silent zones. Finally, what did you discover? Mordank activated the large wall display. A 3-dimensional map of local space appeared, with red zones scattered throughout like drops of blood on black cloth. Sir, these locations are not random. Each zone corresponds exactly to a site of human tragedy or conflict. Velthak studied the map. What kind of tragedies? Failed colony attempts, major space battles, disaster sites where human ships were destroyed, locations where entire populations died from disease or accident. Mordank pointed to different zones as he spoke. This zone here marks where a human colony ship crashed 200 years ago, killing 50,000 people. This one covers the site of a battle where humans fought against an invasion by another species. How do you know this? We accessed human historical databases during our investigation. Every silent zone has a story, Commander, a story of human loss and sacrifice. Velthak sat down heavily in his chair. Continue. The barriers themselves are unlike anything we have encountered. They contain no detectable technology, no energy sources, no physical matter that could block our ships, but they are definitely real. Mordank switched to a different display showing scanner readings. Each zone contains trace amounts of human genetic material and strange quantum signatures. Quantum signatures? Yes, sir. Patterns in space-time itself that match human brainwave frequencies. It is as if the fabric of reality has been impressed with human thought patterns. Velthak rubbed his forehead with one long finger. You are telling me these humans can change the laws of physics by thinking about their dead? Not exactly thinking, sir. The quantum patterns are too complex and too uniform for individual thoughts. They appear to be created by millions or billions of human minds all focused on the same concepts at the same time. The commander stood and walked to his viewing window. Outside, stars dotted the darkness as they always did, but now he knew that scattered among those stars were zones that his mighty fleet could never enter. How is this possible? We are not certain, sir, but we have a theory. Mordank joined him at the window. Most species we have encountered think as individuals first. Even hive-mind species usually have a central controlling intelligence. But humans seem to have evolved a different kind of group consciousness. Explain. When humans experience collective trauma, their minds link together in ways we do not fully understand. They share grief, share memory, share determination that such events will not happen again. This shared mental state creates quantum resonance patterns that affect local space-time. Velthak turned away from the window. Are you saying their emotions can alter reality? Their collective emotions, yes, but only when those emotions are focused on specific locations and specific memories. The barriers exist because billions of humans agree they should exist. A new voice spoke from the doorway. That is mostly correct, but not complete. Both Zephyrians turned to see Dr. Kim Hana, standing in the entrance to the office. 2 guards flanked her, looking embarrassed. How did she get here? Velthak demanded. Sir, she said you had requested her presence. One guard replied nervously. She seemed to know exactly where to find you. Dr. Kim stepped into the room calmly. I apologize for the confusion. I felt that you were ready to hear the full truth about the silent zones. Velthak gestured for the guards to remain but not interfere. You have been listening to our conversation. No, Commander, but I could sense your growing understanding. When humans focus their minds together, we become aware of others who are thinking about the same things. She moved closer to the display showing the map of zones. Your scientist is correct about many things, but he misses the most important point, which is, the silent zones are not just barriers, Commander. They are promises. Dr. Kim touched the display, and somehow the image zoomed in on one particular zone. This zone marks where a human fleet failed to arrive in time to save a colony from raiders. 30 million people died because we were too slow, too unprepared. Velthak stared at the peaceful-looking area of space. So you marked it as a memorial. We marked it as a reminder, Dr. Kim corrected. A reminder that we must never again fail to act when action is needed. Every silent zone represents a lesson learned through terrible loss. Mordank stepped forward. But how does your remembrance create physical barriers? Dr. Kim smiled sadly. Because 10 billion human minds have agreed that these places should remain undisturbed until we prove we have learned from our mistakes. The barriers will remain as long as we need them to remind us of the cost of failure. Commander Velthak felt the cold grip of fear in his chest. He was not facing a species that hid behind barriers. He was facing a species that had weaponized their own grief and turned their failures into strength. Commander Velthak sat across from Dr. Kim Hana in his private meeting room. The formal interrogation had ended days ago, but their conversations continued. Something about this human woman disturbed him deeply. She spoke with the calm confidence of someone who held all the important cards in a deadly game. Tell me about your people's power, Velthak said directly. No more riddles about memory and grief. I want to understand how you change reality itself. Dr. Kim poured herself a cup of the bitter tea that humans seem to enjoy. Very well, Commander, but understanding our power means understanding our greatest weakness first. Weakness? Humans feel everything very deeply. When we lose someone we love, the pain can last for years. When we fail to protect others, the guilt never completely goes away. Most species see this as a flaw that makes us unstable. Velthak nodded. His own people felt emotions, but they were controlled and practical. Excessive grief was considered a mental illness among the Zephyrians. But our deep feelings also create deep connections, Dr. Kim continued. When one human suffers, others feel that suffering. When many humans suffer the same loss, our minds begin to resonate together like musical instruments playing the same note. This resonance creates the barriers? Not directly. The resonance creates shared will. When millions of humans all want the same thing with the same intensity, that desire begins to affect the quantum level of reality. Velthak leaned forward. Quantum level? Dr. Kim stood and walked to the large viewing screen that showed the stars outside. Your scientists have discovered that consciousness can influence quantum particles in small ways. Most species can only affect tiny changes, barely measurable even with your advanced instruments. But humans are different? Humans working together are different. One human thinking about changing reality does nothing. But a billion humans all thinking the same thought, all wanting the same outcome, all focused on the same goal. She touched the screen where one of the silent zones was marked. That creates enough quantum pressure to make reality bend. Velthak felt his stomach tighten. How many humans exist in this galaxy? Approximately 40 billion, spread across 800 worlds and countless space stations. The number hit him like a physical blow. 40 billion minds that could work together to change the basic laws of physics. And they all support these silent zones? Every human child learns about the zones in school. Every human adult visits at least one zone during their lifetime to pay respects. When we focus on these places, we remember not just the dead, but our promise to do better. Dr. Kim returned to her seat and looked directly into Velthak's eyes. Commander, your people conquer through superior technology and military force. You win battles by being faster and stronger than your enemies. But you have never faced an enemy that can make the universe itself refuse to cooperate with your plans. You are saying the universe takes sides? I am saying that reality responds to consciousness. And when enough conscious minds agree on something, reality has no choice but to listen. She smiled sadly. The silent zones exist because 40 billion humans believe they should exist. Not hope, not wish, but know with absolute certainty that these places must remain untouched. Velthak stood and began pacing again, a nervous habit he had developed since meeting these humans. But surely this power has limits. You cannot create barriers everywhere. You cannot make your entire territory impassable. You are correct. The power only works when our emotions are strong enough and our agreement is complete enough. We cannot casually decide to block a random area of space just because we want to. The quantum resonance requires genuine, deep feeling shared by billions of people. So the zones only exist around places of great tragedy? Places of great tragedy, great sacrifice, or great failure that taught us important lessons. Dr. Kim's voice became quieter. Each zone represents a moment when humanity learned something vital about itself. The barriers remain because we need those reminders. Velthak stopped pacing and stared at her. What happens if we destroy human worlds? Will that create more zones? The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Dr. Kim's calm expression never changed, but something in her eyes became as cold as the space between stars. Commander, I hope you never learned the answer to that question. Is that a threat? It is a warning. The silent zones you see now were created by past tragedies, past losses, past failures. They are memorials to the dead and reminders for the living. She stood slowly. But if you bring new tragedy to humanity, if you create new losses and new failures, those events will also need to be remembered. Velthak felt fear crawl up his spine. New zones would appear? New zones would appear wherever your attacks occurred, but they would not be like the current zones, Commander. The current zones were created by human grief and human guilt over our own failures. Her voice became barely above a whisper. Zones created by human anger over attacks by others would be very different things entirely. Different how? Dr. Kim walked toward the door, but paused before leaving. The zones you cannot enter now are marked by human sorrow, Commander. Do not give us reason to mark space with human rage. She left Velthak alone with his fears and the growing realization that he had found something his mighty fleet could never conquer. A species that had learned to make their deepest emotions into weapons that reality itself would enforce. Commander, Velthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the largest silent zone he had ever encountered. The barrier stretched for 3 light years in every direction, completely blocking his fleet's path to the human core worlds. His scientists estimated that nearly 1 million humans had died in this location during some ancient battle. Sir, all ships are in position, reported his tactical officer. We have Dr. Kim and her crew ready for transport to the surface of the human colony on Kepler Station. Velthak had made his decision after days of careful planning. If humans created these barriers through collective will, then perhaps threatening human lives would force them to lower the barriers. It was a simple plan that had worked against dozens of other species. "Open a channel to all human worlds," he commanded. The communication array activated, sending his message across hundreds of star systems. "People of humanity, I am Commander Velthak of the Zephyrian Dominion. Your barriers have blocked our passage for the last time. You will lower all silent zones immediately, or we will begin destroying your colonies one by one." He paused, letting the threat sink in. "To prove our seriousness, we will execute Dr. Kim Hana and her crew in 1 hour unless you comply. This is your only warning." The bridge crew waited in tense silence. Most conquered species responded to such threats within minutes, either with desperate pleas for mercy or immediate surrender. But the communication channels remained quiet. After 30 minutes, a response finally came. Dr. Kim's calm voice filled the bridge, though she was supposedly locked in the holding cells below. "Commander Velthak, this is Dr. Kim. I am speaking for my people." Velthak frowned. "How are you accessing our communication system?" "When humans face great danger, our minds connect more strongly. Right now, 40 billion people are thinking about this conversation. That much focused consciousness can affect many things, including your electronic systems." The commander felt a chill run down his spine. "You will lower the barriers, or your people will watch you die. Commander, you still do not understand what the silent zones represent. We did not create them to keep you out. We created them to remind ourselves what we are capable of when we stop being silent." Before Velthak could respond, his sensor officer looked up from her station with wide eyes. "Sir, I am detecting ships. Many ships." "Where?" "Everywhere, sir. They are appearing all around us." The main viewing screen activated, showing the space around the Zephyrian fleet. Velthak's blood froze. Human ships were materializing out of apparently empty space, not emerging from the silent zones but from areas his scanners had shown as completely vacant. Hundreds of ships, then thousands, then tens of thousands. "Impossible," Velthak whispered. "Our sensors showed nothing in those areas." Dr. Kim's voice continued from the speakers. "The silent zones are not hiding places, Commander. They are markers. Reminders of what happens when humanity fails to act in time." A new voice joined the communication channel. "Commander Velthak, this is Admiral Yoon Seok of the Human Defense Fleet. You are now surrounded by over 50,000 vessels." Velthak looked at his tactical display in disbelief. His fleet of 800 ships was completely encircled by a human armada that had appeared from nowhere. "How did you hide so many ships from our sensors?" Admiral Yoon's voice was calm but carried an edge of steel. "We have been watching you since you entered our space, Commander. Every move you made, every threat you issued, every barrier you tested. We were always here, waiting to see what kind of species you truly were." Dr. Kim's voice returned. "The silent zones taught us an important lesson, Commander. The greatest tragedies in human history happened because we failed to act when action was needed. Because we hesitated when we should have moved. Because we hoped for peace when we should have prepared for war." Velthak's hands shook as he gripped the command chair. "You were testing us? We were hoping you would prove to be different from the other conquerors we have faced," Admiral Yoon replied. "We hoped you would respect our memorials and seek peaceful contact. But you chose threats and violence instead. The barriers, they were not meant to stop us?" "The barriers exist to remind us of our failures," Dr. Kim explained. "Every silent zone marks a time when humans died because we were not ready, not strong enough, not united enough to protect them. We mark those places so we will never forget. The cost of being unprepared." Velthak looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Fear and confusion stared back at him. "What do you want from us?" "We want you to leave our space and never return," Admiral Yoon said firmly. "We want you to understand that humanity learned from every tragedy, every loss, every failure marked by our silent zones. We are no longer the species that can be caught, unprepared. Dr. Kim added, "The zones you could not pass through were created by human grief, Commander. But if you had destroyed our colonies, if you had killed our people, those new tragedies would have created different kinds of zones. Zones marked not by our sorrow, but by our anger. What would those zones do? We hope you never have to learn the answer to that question." Velthak stared at the display showing thousands of human ships surrounding his fleet. For 3 centuries, he had been the predator hunting weaker prey. Now he understood that he had stumbled into the territory of something far more dangerous than any species he had ever encountered. Humanity had turned their deepest failures into their greatest strengths. They had learned to make their grief into barriers and their determination into reality itself. "We are leaving," Velthak announced quietly. For the first time in 300 years, the Zephyrian dominion retreated.